Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Writer's Room. I'm your host, Kat Rocha, the night editor, and joining me this evening is
J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit.
And
William Hastings, fantasy novelist. My first book, The Crimson Spark, is available now on Amazon.
And the man, the myth, the legend.
Our mystery guest is...
I am Xevious, and I'm the artist guy. You guys you see me around, and I'm working with a lot of these people on a bunch of different projects.
And although we've only been able to get one episode out, we're going to try to make it a regular thing that Z and I will be doing Deep Down Trauma Hounds, which is about where goth industrial music and metal cross over with geek culture.
Yes. Yeah, let's try for this coming up this next week.
Absolutely.
That could be fun.
And the Lord of Buddies will be joining us later this evening.
No, we've got a tradition.
Oh, we have a tradition? Okay.
Buddy Lord's dead. He died. So he can't make it tonight.
F in the chat, please.
Yeah. F in the chat for Buddy. He's
Yes.
dead. Unless he rises.
Pour one out for him.
Yeah, I mean, William died last week, but he rose from the dead. So we're hoping this will happen.
Maybe he'll make his God call.
Okay, well.
Okay, so this evening we are going to talk Star Trek. Yes, not that other star thing. We're all over that one. No, we're going to talk Star Trek tonight.
The other train wreck.
The other train wreck. Yes, with Picard now airing. In fact, Xevious shared with us that episode 5 is airing tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is for me. Some people got a sneak peek of it at about 2:00 this morning. I saw Gary Bigler had posted that he had reviewed it, which I haven't caught yet. But for most of us, it's going to be on in a couple hours. So there you go. And it'll be halfway done.
So since what they're doing with Trek, a lot of people really aren't too happy about. We're going to have a little exercise tonight.
A roundtable discussion.
Yeah, a roundtable discussion on how would our panel of creators fix, reboot, or
revitalize the Star Trek universe.
Exactly.
As a brand.
Exactly. So there are going to be rules, some basic rules. The basic rule is unless you're not too familiar with Trek, try not to play in the Kelvin timeline. We're going to do from original series through to through to Enterprise, and also try not to play too much with the movies. But again, understand
the movies are canon.
The movies are canon. And again, please voice if no, you really want to talk something else.
Oh, we already got a question.
Okay, how much of continuity are we allowed to nuke? Well, see, that's the fun thing about it, is that this is revitalize or rejuvenate or reimagine Trek.
Any way you want.
Any way you'd like. So who would like to go first?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm afraid that if I did, I would kind of dominate it. And we're still waiting for somebody to rise from the dead. Really get started here.
I don't mind going first.
But
okay.
I had one concept where they could all just be Guyvers. Every single one of them a fucking Guyver. That's it.
William.
So my knowledge of Star Trek is kind of limited. I know a lot about the characters in the world and its creation, but I'm not too familiar with the original series or Next Generation. I have seen Voyager, I've seen the Kelvin stuff, and I've seen a couple of the movies. I think that Gene Roddenberry was a very smart man, but he was a Navy man. He was in the military, and a lot of what Star Trek became comes from Navy behaviors, Navy lingo, and Navy fiction, like Horatio Hornblower in particular was a big influence. And I think that there's a lot of that sort of military sensibility that just is kind of missing nowadays from Star Trek. From what I've seen of like the new series, it seems like they are sort of military in name only. It doesn't seem to have sort of the discipline and structure and camaraderie that the original story was sort of intended to evoke. At least, not to my understanding. Oh, hey, buddy.
And
Hello.
risen,
He has risen. Yeah.
the
Right.
Lord.
Let the doves fly.
Yeah.
What I'm going to say to that, William, I think one of the main reasons that we've kind of lost that, other than, well, there's a lot of reasons, but I know that a lot of the original writers of Star Trek for the original series were people who had served in World War II and had a very solid knowledge of that culture, the military culture. A lot of them had been in the Navy. And I think now we've primarily got spoiled rich kids that are the sons of producers writing these episodes.
That does seem to be a pattern. So in my revitalization, I would go back almost. No, not even almost. I would go all the way to the beginning, and I would have it focus on Zephram Cochrane.
Mm.
Oh.
My favorite Star Trek thing is First Contact, and I find the character of Zephram Cochrane to be really interesting. And I think that sometimes when something isn't working, you need to sort of go back to the beginning and put it back together. And I feel like starting with Cochrane and First Contact and building the Star Trek universe from scratch, basically, would be sort of a healthy exercise in understanding why it's important and why it works.
We have to go back.
Yeah, we got to go back. You all have to go back. We all have to go back. To like,
So would you like set it in like the days right after Vulcans came by and made first contact, and it's the those troubled days of mankind getting used to the fact that we truly aren't alone in the world?
I
in the
would set
universe?
it slightly before that. I would set it to Cochrane's beginning experiments in the aftermath of the war, and have that sort of flashback. Keep going back to things that happened in the war to understand where we are right now, and rebuilding the Federation sort of from the ashes of the war. I always thought was a really cool idea, and I think that it's something that could be expanded on.
That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be so removed from anything prior that has been made. And you could really start exploring the notion of them going from this, post Third World War savagery to this idealistic vision. How did they get there? How did that happen?
Isn't that kind of what Scalzi does?
Do not mention skulls.
Okay.
No, seriously. I have a very bad story about him. But anyway, yeah, what did he do?
Well, his book, the Old Man's War and all that, wasn't it kind of about that? I mean, he even has the red shirts in it.
I don't know. After my one encounter with Scalzi, I can't even read his work or much less touch it. I was such a dirtbag.
Well, you can't leave it there. I mean,
Okay. Years ago, after I just released Utopiates, we were at Seattle Comic-Con, and John Scalzi sitting there, and this is when he was the head of the SFWA, the Science Fiction Writers Association. And I said, if you're busy, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? If you're busy, that's okay. He said, oh, no, I always have time for people. Come on over here. And I said, all right, because, I wanted to ask first if it was okay. And I said, well, okay, there's obviously a lot of crossover between what's in comics and what's in sci-fi. How do we bridge that gap between the readership so we can grow both? And he then proceeded to tear me a new one about how I was a talentless hack. I didn't know anything, that I was stupid, and that if I knew anything, he'd realize that the best way to sell stuff was to write really lowbrow fiction that seemed intelligent and was just taking something that already had been done and painting it and making it seem original. He said, that's what I do. All of my work is written so that if you're as dumb as my mom, you understand it. I mean,
Oh my
he was
God.
a complete piece of shit. And it seemed like he really went out of his way to call me over and do this. So
Unwarranted
Worst, like
self-importance.
hero story I've ever heard.
That sounds about right. From what I know about the Science Fiction Writers Association, that seems in character. Yeah.
well, he was also largely responsible for turning it into a lobbyist organization for the Democrats as well. He took what was originally his, institution that had been around for decades, founded by Heinlein and Asimov and Clark, and turned it into basically his little club of cronies that then were going to beat the drum for who you should vote for, and that was
Yeah, I mean, I heard about that. Like, wasn't that? I think some of that and the whole Nebula thing, like that. What is it? That one guy, Correa. You heard him?
Larry
Correa?
Correa?
Yeah, he's like a large Puerto Rican dude, I think, or Portuguese. I don't know. He's a big guy, but he's he writes kind of like like
He
short
writes adventure
story,
pulp.
huh?
He writes adventure pulp.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he writes it's like like super built, muscular, macho guy and hot, busty chick, like
Would you say
every
that's
single
true,
book.
Kat?
That's a Monster Hunter, right?
Yeah.
Muscular guy, lots of guns, hot, bookish chick.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing special to it, but it's got its charm. But he went against them for a long time because I remember Scalzi was like, I don't know. I used to pay attention to his blog, and then his blog just became like a platform for, I don't know, saying stuff like, "You guys are stupid because cosplay girls are real geek girls too." And I'm like, who is making these arguments?
Scalzi is someone I wouldn't be shocked if he turned out to be one of those Me Too cases.
Right? Like
The
he's
whole
very
Science
much
Fiction Writers Association is a big Me Too case waiting to happen. I mean, like
Yeah,
look
it
at
is
all
now,
that stuff
yeah.
with Miss of Avalon, whatever her name was.
Oh, Marion Zimmer Bradley.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, she prostituted her kids.
Yeah, William, you
okay, I
read
don't even want to know this.
you read her Moira's book, right?
Yes, I did on your suggestion, actually.
Yeah, that I'll admit it got to a point where I had to stop because that was a dark tunnel that I found I could only venture down in chunks.
I would say another thing to keep in mind, though, is Scalzi is essentially an opportunist.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to making his name in sci-fi, writing shitty knockoffs of other people's stuff, and I guess convincing everyone that it was original, he was essentially cashing in on the new age sensitive guy market of the 1990s, and it even made an appearance on Oprah about how to let the woman control everything, and
Oh my
buy
god!
his book and you can get a woman too.
Really?
Oh yeah, I got the video. It's pathetic.
Why?
So to bring
Speaking of speaking of things that were really once revered institutions of science fiction that were then transformed into political clubs, Star Trek.
Okay. Let's get back to the topic. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, William, you were saying that you would return it to its roots. The days of Zephram Cochrane before FTL was created.
Yeah, just before, and I would have it be the journey to FTL, first contact, and those first steps into space. The sort of grand unknown of it all, and rebuilding humanity from the ashes of the war. You can mix in, and what I like about that though is that you don't have to have character. I think one of the problems with Discovery is that they cling so tightly to the original series, while at the same time clearly not having that much affection for it.
So would you make it about Zephram Cochrane, or would it be about a group or his team or people in the settlement that he's in? So it's more of an ensemble cast.
Well, it would actually be about Zephram Cochrane's adopted black sister who's good at everything and everybody likes her.
Oh, Well, I think you got something here.
Yeah. I'm actually already in talks with the network people.
She's the bestest ever.
Actually, yeah, no, I think I'd have Zephyrin Cochrane be the main character. Because I kind of just I thought James Cromwell did a really good job bringing him to life, and he's a very relatable, understandable sort of character. He's an everyman, but at the same time, he's obviously very brilliant, and he has realistic goals and ideals that I think people can latch onto. He's not a commander or anything like that. He's not a captain, but he's interesting, and I think that his perspective on the sort of the world of Star Trek would be a cool place to go.
Now, would you use Steppenwolf for the opening titles?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't even think about it.
Sounds good.
Here's an interesting one to think about, because they do overlap. Technically, in the Star Trek timeline, Cochrane was born in 2030. Now, Noonien Khan, Wrath of Khan, was a warlord that was prominent in the 1990s, but because of his genetic engineering, you could have him show up. We don't know when he left Earth.
Yeah, there would be an opening for that kind of sort of fan service and exciting storytelling, but at the same time you could use things people recognize, like the races and the worlds people recognize, but while telling new and interesting stories, not having to rely on the older characters, which is something I've heard is a problem with the newer series.
Yeah.
Very cool.
No, I love that idea. That I would watch that.
Mhm.
Z?
I would watch it for sure. Sounds good. That's a very memorable scene. I like the character for sure.
All right, well, I appreciate it. What about you, buddy?
Oh, I missed half of it, but
No, I mean, like, what would you do to Star Trek?
oh, God.
Buddy, the topic tonight is reimagining, reinvigorating Star Trek, and what you would do to bring life back to this wonderful, beloved franchise that has been just thoroughly raked over the coals here. Basic rule is no Kelvin timeline, and not so much the films, but if that's the only thing that you're familiar with, that's okay. Also, we do not have STDs; we use condoms.
I see. No discovery here, huh? I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen. I saw 15 minutes of Discovery and shut it off. Like it was very obvious what it was trying to be.
That's
You know what I
something you
mean?
have in common with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
I saw like I don't know, because didn't it come on at first? Like they had these like 15-minute like previews or something, and you could watch those. And I remember, I think it was X. X and I were talking about it, or somebody. And no, maybe it was, I can't remember. But I was like, okay, yeah, I'll check it out. So I watched 15 minutes and got to the point where it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a captain, but they don't like me, so they stuffed me in here in the cafeteria, and I accidentally found the invisible super princess, ultimate scientist of her nation.
Oh yeah, we did talk about that. That's the
And I was like, I'm
the
done.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot of women crying in that show. It's tough to watch.
Right?
Mhm.
I was was like, okay, I'm done. This is like I don't know. It feels more like some kind of Kleenex commercial or like a Hallmark, greeting card or something. I don't know. It was kind of horrible. But what I would do is I would just take out I like Star Trek when it's just Star Trek, I guess. I mean, I know there's a guy called Quinn, and he really gets into the story, and he says that Picard, he posits that Picard is real Star Trek, because he says that Roddenberry always wanted to talk about the discovery and the politics and the kind of like really non-actiony, non-whatever. And that may be true. And my argument to that is, who cares? No, really, like, who cares what it was supposed to be? No offense, but when you put something out there, it's no longer it's no longer yours. You know what I mean? I can't count how many times I wrote a specific novel. It's a great novel. But when it went through Joe and then X and then a few other people, guess what? It's totally different now.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's fine. I think it's better. I think it's more dynamic. It's more interesting. And when you put something out there in the world, like people are going to change it. People are going to love what they love, right? Why would you, like if you had a kid, right? And your kid starts playing with the Transformer, why would you take away the Transformer and throw the Barbie doll at him?
Fair enough.
Hmm. Sure.
And we as like the public, right? We took Star Trek. We said, this is what we like. We like a strong captain. It can be female. I don't really care.
Yeah, the captain of Voyager's female. She's tough. Everybody likes her.
Janeway's awesome.
We like a cool, like, believable. But you know what I thought made Kirk and Picard more than anything was their vulnerability, their weakness. Like, I remember seeing one of the episodes, I think it was Picard. I can't, where it was like, he was kind of headstrong. And like, he's like, what if I wasn't so headstrong? Would I have gotten further ahead? And, they gave him one of those, like, let's see, kind of like, was it Christmas Tale, sort of things, Christmas Carol kind of thing. You're going to be visited by these people and go here.
The episode where Q takes him back to that moment when
he's fighting like three aliens, I think, at the same time in a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's like, and it is because you're so cocksure that you became who you are, because of your vulnerability, your weaknesses, because of your flaws, that you became a captain. Without them, he was a nobody. He was like not even I think he was an engineer, but he wasn't even a first engineer,
He was lower than an ensign, is what it was. So what would you do? What type of show? What type of what would you do for your chance to do a show for Trek? To bring that back.
Sorry, I would go past Voyager. I wouldn't go back. I'd go forward. I'd get a cool captain. I would like. I might even change up. The Romulan, Klingon, whatever. Maybe some relations or politics have been made here. Maybe there's some bands over there. Maybe these guys hate each other. I would change everything, flip it on its head, come back at it from a different angle. But I would have, like, what people get invested in is not really, and I think that's the difference. Like, they're trying to make the politics and the plot the interesting part. That's never been what we've cared about. It's always been the characters.
Well, the politics and was the source of the conflict often.
Yeah.
It was, without the characters, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And the thing is it's like, without caring about, like, I mean, that's one of the first things that, in my story I wanted to do was invest the reader into the character. I want you to be able to see through their eyes, feel what they feel, right? And that's what you want. And by making them flawed and interesting and whatever, and weak in their own way, you got that. You're like, yeah, cocksure, too proud, whatever. I get that. He's a bastard, but he's a likable bastard. I get it. And then we're behind him, right? But then when you've just got something and it's just like a teaching moment, like it just feels like a PBS special, who the hell cares?
Mhm.
Yeah. At what point does it start just being propaganda?
Well, when it's Star Trek Picard, or you've got the perfect black woman who can do everything better than everybody and has to teach Spock how to be a Vulcan.
What, Mikey Spock?
Yeah, Mikey Spock.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't even see it, but I heard X like complaining about Picard. He's like, dude, like I've seen 3 different women yell at him this episode. He's like, I don't know what to think.
Yeah, every time.
And I agree with LK here. Like, I mean, I think that's the thing too, is that like it needs to have, start in desolation and then have hope, because isn't that every great story anyway? Right? Something happens, maybe like everything is good in the first episode, and then there's a mistake. Maybe it's made by the people of the show that causes a huge political upheaval. Now they have to fix it. That's an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
We can get into that, and don't be afraid to lean into. I don't care about diversity. You can have we've always had diversity. What I would like? More aliens.
True.
Isn't that true diversity?
That's so expensive for television, though. That is one of the main problems.
I mean, like Farscape and all those cheesy companies did it, and I'll even take it like they did it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I
Puppets.
got nothing against rubber masks.
Yeah.
I mean, we look at like Doctor Who. Like, I think maybe they're so afraid of that they don't want to do that, but I think that would be a better idea. I mean, they've got a pretty decent budget. You know what I mean? And I just believe that it would be better to have something like that. To have, if you're going to do diversity, let's do real diversity. But if you do, I mean, does anyone care if they have like an Asian woman or a black guy or does anyone care?
People who care about that kind of stuff aren't in it for Star Trek. They're in it for the politics, the agenda,
The virtue signaling.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you want to have those in there, I don't care, but just make them people. They're just people. It's not a black guy. It's just a guy. It's
We
a guy.
already have a black blind engineer. We don't need to do it again.
Right? And we don't need, and that's fine. Like, you can do other stuff, right? You can have other disabilities. I mean, this is the future, right? They can have like cybernetic parts, and the cybernetic parts are not perfect, so they're always messing up or something. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before we proceed, one of our listeners has an incredible idea that I just have to share. Now, Owen Lister proposes that my approach to Star Trek would be to make it more like the Power Rangers in a John Woo movie. I like action, so I'd like to be more action-focused Star Trek show. So I don't know. I think maybe
like Guyver.
So maybe we could have like a Star Trek crew that screams morphin time whenever.
Don't even joke about that. That sounds awesome.
No, yes. Yes, please.
Okay.
I did have a crush on the original Pink Ranger for a while.
I think
Kimmy?
a lot of people did. Did you get the Playboy as a lot of those fans did?
No.
Oh, you didn't
No.
get the Playboy with Kimberly in it?
Mm-mm.
It doesn't.
In college, I knew a lot of young men who had that issue in the dorm.
I remember a lot of dudes had the Shannon Doherty issue.
Wow, I had totally forgotten she had done that.
All right. Well, I'm going to now dive into mine.
What about Xevious?
Oh, I'm sorry, Xevious.
Xevious has not shared his.
Okay, so I'm surrounded by these wonderful professional writers, and
Well, I'm an editor, so.
and I'm a visualist, and I like to bring, I flesh out the ideas. I've been working for a long time with Buddy here, but I think that off the top of my head, I would take Star Trek to sort of the era from Voyage Home. So I'd set it in like 1985 San Francisco, and they're trapped there. So
love that.
Interesting.
yeah. So what we have, and I'd bring back, I'd still use all the J.J. Abrams cast. So we'd have Zachary Quinto as an awesome Spock, and Chris Pine is a great Kirk.
So
And you do-
everybody's got like a telephone the size of a small baby attached to their head.
Yep. You've got Chekhov trying to figure out stuff with Scotty, with the naval base, all that kind of thing, and it would borrow from some of the tropes from Galactica 80, which I loved that when I was a kid. If you
I
guys,
was thinking, yeah, it reminds me of 80.
yeah, there you go. That's what we got to flesh it out a bit, but I think that could be a fun, affordable show to do as well. Bubba boom.
As long as they don't have an episode about the crew leading a little league game.
But where would where
I'm
they go
serious.
to,
That was an episode of
film that?
Galactica in 1980.
That was an entire episode.
Yes,
Oh my
and it
god.
was called Spaceball.
I forgot that. Yeah.
That was the worst episode.
No, like we would have Zachary Quinto riding public transit, dealing with punk rockers.
Dude, that'd be awesome.
I think so. Thank you.
Just him on Space Bart.
Punk Star Trek.
Bart's the public trans in San Francisco.
Well, no, actually, it would be Muni.
Oh, it would be Muni. Yeah, you're right.
You gotta be careful around public trans in San Francisco. You can get a disease.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays.
Yeah, and I think the show would work because everybody's doing it now. We had Captain Marvel, which wasn't great, obviously. We're getting Wonder Woman, which is going to be that same mid '80s. So let's just do it with all these great actors.
Yeah, I really like that idea. Voyage Home is a lot of people's favorite movie, of the Star Trek movies anyway. So I think people would really like that.
Is that the one where they're taking the whales home?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, ooh, they should like recruit one of them, and he should be on the crew.
A whale?
It'll be like what, Darwin from Sequest?
Yes, exactly.
Or
Yeah, I forgot about
what is it,
Sequest.
the dolphin in oh god, that Keanu Reeves movie. Was it Keanu Reeves? Yeah.
Johnny Mnemonic.
Johnny Mnemonic. Yeah. I think
I love Johnny Mnemonic.
That's actually where Darwin came from. Is Darwin's inspired by the dolphin from Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh, wow.
We could do a whole episode on Johnny Mnemonic.
Mhm.
It's crazy, but it had great ideas. I mean, it was obvious. I don't know. I felt like it was very like, was it Shadow? What is it? That RPG Shadow?
Shadow. Well, look, now we're going into a very, very off the grid territory here. The reason being is that Johnny Mnemonic was the first story in the Burning Chrome anthology by William Gibson.
Who wrote Neuromancer?
It was one of his first cyberpunk stories. I think he wrote it in like 78, 79. Shadowrun robbed it blind. The short story, Johnny Mnemonic, would have been a great film. And they really should have stuck with that. The movie we got, it was like, why did you do that? Seriously, you made every wrong choice possible.
Oh wow.
I don't know, the cyber where he actually like plugs in, that scene was pretty cool.
Yes,
Dolph
and
Lundgren
that
was really
scene
good.
was the best scene, and that was there because that wasn't made for Johnny Mnemonic. That was an entire sequence that had been done for a Burning Chrome film that got shit canned.
Really?
They said, we've got this footage sitting around. Why don't we use it?
So it's one of those movies where it's a decent idea and then they just screw it up all the way in every process. Like was it The Core?
Yes.
Read the short story. It's really good.
And watch all the scenes that have Dolph Lundgren in them.
Oh,
Yes.
I've seen it. It's kind of a funny movie. I don't know. I thought it was
I'd
fun.
forgotten Dolph was in it.
He's like a robot street preacher. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's the priest, I think.
Wow.
Okay, so somebody here, where was it? Where'd it go? Back to the drawing board. His suggestion here is very close, or kind of in line with what I was thinking for my reboot or revitalization. And Back to the Drawing Board writes,
This would be shortly after the Dominion War, and you could even have a meta conflict between the veterans of the war and the fresh-faced officers who haven't fought in the war.
I would love to do something where it takes place 20 years after the Dominion War. And yes, you have veterans and you have fresh-faced recruits, and they're serving that in that area between Bajor and Cardassia. Now, my thought is the following. Star Trek has always been about hope and looking forward into the future, but it also has been taking current issues and looking at it in a different way and taking a more ballsy, gutsy approach to answering it. Right now, part of the problem is that we're not getting characters, and we're just being preached at. They're not really proposing anything interesting. We're not looking at any of the stuff in a new way. So you had this horrible war on Bajor. Now, let's say the
Cardassians?
the mercenaries, the lizard guys.
The Jem'Hadar.
Yeah, the Jem'Hadar, which were kind of supposed to be like Middle Eastern assassins, Hassan's assassins. They were drug addicted. If you know anything about that period in history, they were the Jem'Hadar were a drug addicted army that served the founders. When the war was over, they had nothing. Their entire culture, which had been based around being a war culture serving the founders who were their gods, had been eradicated. So my thought is, what if the Federation now is stuck with a very volatile problem in that sector of the quadrant, where first you've got Bajor, who has turned into kind of this radical state where they've become like Israel, where they're like just hell-bent on defense. Everything is about defending Bajor and their culture. Meanwhile, you've got Cardassia recovering, and becoming kind of this post-Germany or post-Japan type country after World War II. And then to top things off, you've got the Jem'Hadar as a refugee crisis because nobody knows what the hell to do with them, and they're being integrated into various Starfleet or Federation of Planet societies, and it's not working out. We're getting beheadings. We're getting weird cults. We're getting religious jihadi wars going on in these very idyllic societies. Nothing like what's going on in Europe, of course.
No, of course not.
Not at all. And then you apply Roddenberry's forward-thinking vision to it. Okay, we've seen how our cultures have fucked it up. You've seen how European culture has politics, the EU, has fucked it up. What would a better society do? Really? How would we look this problem head on? And you could have different angles. Like you could have the Vulcans as being a little too much like the EU and making excuses and trying to logic out, oh, well, we've got to understand why they're behaving like this. And then you could have this crew, maybe a Kirk-like captain that's got the balls to say, no, we're not going to succeed by catering to this. And there were episodes in the original Star Trek series where Kirk even said as much, where he said, no, you can't just give freedom to people. They've got to earn it or else they won't understand it or respect it. So that would be my proposal. It would be 20 years after the Dominion War, that whole area of the quadrant is just screwed up to hell. And you've got one Federation ship there with some war vets, maybe maybe the chief is there, and Bashir. That would be great to bring them back. You could even bring back Kira as an ambassador, playing the middle. And they're trying to maintain some sort of order in this area that's become very lawless, and that you've got many different factions competing.
And it's interesting that you bring up the idea of having the veterans of this war and the new commanders. That kind of juxtaposes the idea of the older writers who had served in World War II and the new writers who haven't ever served in anything.
Hell, you could even go as far as to have some of the new crew embracing some of these weird, idyllic, woke ideas that are just so far removed from reality. The older guy saying, I know it's a nice thought, but I've been to war, okay? Understand.
So, like, was it The Rise of Skywalker versus The Last Jedi? Where he just really kind of, it's just like, all this is kind of dumb. Like, okay, I know this is, they did this, but that's 1 in a million. You should never do that. That's dumb.
But yeah, that's my thought.
And for me, actually.
Oh, and they'd all be Guyvers.
Oh, right, yeah, naturally.
And yes, I'm actually weighing in on this one tonight. For me, I love the fact that Trek is, as William, you said before, it's based on the Navy. These are Navy men. We have our naval captain, going through space. But we do know, especially from Deep Space Nine, that there are Marines. There are Starfleet Marines that also serve. And so I would love to see a real Dominion War television show where it's boots on the ground, soldiers serving, especially on the other side of the wormhole, and kind of do it like honestly, do it like Roughnecks, do it like Starship Troopers, not the movie, I mean the book, but really have it be boots on the ground, the reality, the harsh reality of that Dominion War, because we already saw it and it was already
that one
terrible.
Episode you're thinking of, one of the best episodes they did.
Where that was the one where Nog got his leg shot off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we already got that taste, and I loved the fact that they actually dived into how dark things are. I mean, we've seen people die in Trek before, but again, that's Navy. I mean, like Marines. Guys on the ground who have to get really, really dirty. And I'd love to see a show about their lives and all the different places that they're deployed and all the decisions that they have to make, especially if they were to run into that one faction of Jem'Hadar that were actually able to break away from the founders and get themselves off of the drug. What would they do running into those guys? Would they trust them? Would they become allies? Or is it just, okay, we're not shooting you today, but who knows tomorrow? Again, the real questions of the battlefield. I think that would, putting back into Trek the hard questions that need to be asked, especially in wartime, because quite frankly, what we're getting now is just limp-wristed drivel at best, and just virtue signaling, pandering at worst. And I want like real hard-hitting questions with actual consequences. It may be the right decision, but what consequences will come of it?
Well, that was the thing that made the original DS9 arc so good, was that it really stuck to Roddenberry's idea of this optimism, but it constantly was putting it to the test. In Next Gen, so often, they could just press a few buttons or roll the Enterprise up and they won.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could pull something out of their ass. No, there were losses. There was a price for being able to achieve these things and to maintain this idealism in DS9.
So any final comments for this particular topic, guys?
I really liked hearing you guys' ideas. I'm definitely going to have to watch Deep Space Nine because it's clear that Ishi and Kat, you guys have a lot of affection for it.
Yeah.
And I've only heard good things. So
I will warn you that first season and a half are a little slow. There's getting their feet.
You need to watch it because things that happen in that season will determine or the setup for what happens for years to come.
That and a lot of stuff. A lot of the scripts of that first season were rejected Star Trek Next Generation scripts, so they did not feel right.
No, but after you get through the first year and a half, and oh my God, Garak is like one of the best characters ever in all of Star Trek. Garak is played by, I can't remember what the actor's name is, but he played the Scorpio killer in Dirty Harry.
You suddenly find out this guy, whoa, we lost.
Xevious died.
Xevious died. He's down.
Oh no, maybe he got bored with us.
We need a Phoenix to bring him back. But while we're waiting for Xevious to hopefully rise from the dead, so shall we move on to our next topic? Do we have room? Do we have time tonight?
If you're talking about brainstorming a reboot of The Matrix in 20 minutes, you got to be kidding me.
No, we don't have time.
No, not even close.
So we will tease that for next time or another time. So we've got 20 minutes.
Well, LK has a comment that I'd like to answer.
Okay. J.Ishiro, Gibson is one of my favorite world builders. I love his description of the sprawl and how he turned the Golden Gate Bridge into a shanty town.
Yeah, those first two series, the Sprawl series and the Bridge series, were, I think, his best. After that, I think he kind of lost his way. But those books are brilliant, amazingly written, and had a deep effect on me as well. Anyone else?
I actually have a question.
Yes.
What's Enterprise like?
Enterprise is confused.
Yes.
Yeah.
Enterprise. The problem with Enterprise is that goes back to what we were discussing earlier before.
I could talk about my experiences.
Started. You can talk about your experiences. Basically, Enterprise, they wanted to do like before original series and kind of set things up, which on itself is a great idea.
Essentially, it's right after Cochrane.
Oh,
right after Cochrane.
The golden age he's ushering in.
But because of the rights issues of who owned what.
No, that wasn't it.
Oh, that wasn't it.
No.
No, what was it?
What it was was it Brandon Braga and Rick Berman,
Mm-hmm.
just at that point decided they didn't like Star Trek anymore, and they wanted to do something that was completely un-Star Trek and all their own. And the first season was essentially a vandalization of everything Roddenberry had done. They wanted it as un-Star Trek as possible. And then the ratings came in. I mean, that's even why they had that stupid song at the beginning.
Oh yeah, the theme song.
And they originally didn't even want to call it Star Trek Enterprise. So they just wanted it to be called Enterprise.
Oh, okay. I have to say, we got married on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Well, we got married in 2 locations.
No, we legally got married on the bridge of the Enterprise with a Ferengi as our witness. And as part of the wedding package, they let us walk around the bridge, which was really cool. And, you know, you've got the theme
and
songs playing.
It was the first season bridge of Next Generation. It was the set.
The actual set. And, you know, they're playing the theme song and other incidental music from the show, and that's great. And then they kicked on the theme to Enterprise, and we looked at each other and we're like, you know, maybe it's time we should go. So we started leaving, and as we were leaving, one of the door guards just starts laughing. We're like, no, so what's funny?
And then the Ferengi says, they play that song whenever they want people to leave.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's what's with Enterprise, is that it's confused. And
so then second season rolled around, and they tried to meet the fans midway, and they still hated it. And then third season came, and they fired the 2 producers, a showrunner and producer, and brought someone else on, and the show got good. It got really good. And it started to feel like real Trek again. But by that time, there had been so much damage done, it was too late, and they couldn't get a 4th season. It had already been
I
canceled.
thought it was a 4th. They had a 4th season, and then
Oh yeah,
they
it'd been
couldn't get
script.
I thought it was the 5th
Or
season.
maybe I think one of the 2. I forget which. It's either 5th or 4th.
I think it was. Well, anyway.
4th. But anyway, they even had the edit scripted. That was all ready to go, but they couldn't do it. And it was a shame was that I had actually been working with one of the writers who primarily did a lot of stuff on Voyager.
Mm.
But he was pushing a script involving a race called the Kzinti for the 4th season of Voyager, or not Voyager, Enterprise. And I was on board helping him design a possible ship to use as part of the pitch. And the day that we were to show up and take a look, you know, pitch the episode to the producers, we show up and they say, bad news, guys. We tried. You're the first to hear this. Show's canceled. But if you want to look at the sets while you're here, go right ahead, because they're going to get torn down next week. So we got a full tour of the bridge. It was pretty impressive. I stole a data card off the bridge.
Yeah, it's sitting on the bookshelf at the moment.
So I've got an authentic prop.
And you got to see the paper towels.
Oh God, yeah. The one, there was a handful of producers. I don't know how this works, but they had multiple producers, and one of the producers was giving us the tour. And he was this very meek, soft-spoken guy, but you know, everything he said was which was kind of weird. Yes, Larry Niven's Kzinti, exactly. But anyway, we get to Dr. Phlox's med bay.
Put that one up so people can see it.
Where?
There.
Okay, we'll bring that up in a minute. And he's like, now, this is my contribution to the show. And he points to this roll of paper towels in the corner. I was figuring, since it isn't quite the future of Star Trek, it's in between, that, you know, there should be something recognizable in the med bay. So I thought, what would they have to clean their hands? Paper towels. So I had my assistant go out and get a roll of paper towels, and that's my contribution to this set. And he was so fucking proud of this thing.
Amazing.
That is.
And then later, as we left, what the writer says, yeah, you just gotta let them think they matter. You know, they control the money, so you just kind of nod and say, okay.
So are you watching Enterprise, or were you wondering how exactly it fit into the continuity of Trek?
Me?
I was just curious because it's the one series that people don't usually talk about that much.
It's kind of the redheaded stepchild of Star Trek. It wasn't bad enough for people to really remember, but it was bad enough for people to want to forget.
The problem is that unlike the shit we're getting now, the thing was everyone looked at Enterprise and was like, this has so much potential. This should be great.
Mhm.
And it was just like disappointment after disappointment. And then they got around to, I think the third season was, I believe, with the new people. And everyone was loving it. I mean, they brought the Gorn back.
Well, it definitely did try to return to that Horatio Hornblower
Yes.
feel. Quantum Leap, what's his name?
Oh, Scott
Bakula.
Another one was that they did that whole story arc in the Mirrorverse, which was just genius.
Yeah, it was. God, I totally forgot about that.
Where they just decided to tell the story in the Mirrorverse.
Just because they could.
And it was a multi-parter. And while they did it, they used a different theme song, which was great. And they even changed the opening sequence so that everything was like fascist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds kind of cool. Yeah, it's interesting that things weren't working, and so they changed it. You know, like listening to the fans and stuff. That's such an early 2000s mode of thinking.
Oh God, don't we all miss it?
Indeed.
Okay, so Star Siege Player says,
Oh, you already read his thing, though.
I didn't read it out loud.
Yeah, you did.
He writes, Kazinti, Larry Niven's Kazinti.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Niven created the race of the Kazinti for his Ringworld setting, which were a race of marauding cat people.
Mm-hmm.
And they did have a loose tie to Star Trek because of the animated series they made an appearance. And so Jimmy Diggs, the writer, was really pushing to bring them into Enterprise. And they were very serious about doing it.
And
well, it got shit canned, so it never happened.
Oh, okay. It was in suspense there.
Okay, so I think that's it.
Somebody brought up. BGC says prelude to Axanar. That was and should be the Star Trek we need, but won't get.
Yeah, you guys, have you seen the trailer for that?
I watched the documentary thing, the fake documentary they made.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I don't know where it stands right now. Do you?
No.
Are you guys familiar with Axanar?
I'm afraid not.
I have no idea.
It was meant to be a full feature film, and Paramount shut it down like 5 or 6 years ago. And I believe the result of that, legal deal was that they're now going to make 2 15-minute shorts. But it looks, it looks as good as, in fact, it looks an awful lot like 80s Star Trek, on screen.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd say go Google it, man. It's all on YouTube. It looks really cool.
All right,
it's very cool. Definitely suggest everyone check it out.
So do you want to do The Matrix next week?
Absolutely. I was born for that.
Kat, you want to explain?
Well,
yeah,
it's what we have done tonight. How would you, especially considering they're coming back with the with another Matrix film that's currently in production.
Whoa.
And if you were handed the universe that is the Matrix, what would you do with it? What is your idea of the next film? Does it involve Neo? Does it not involve Neo? Just moving forward. No, don't answer now. No, we're teasing. Think about it.
Elon Musk says it's already happening.
I'm gonna pretend like I didn't write this pitch like 10 years ago.
What do you mean Elon Musk says it's already happening?
Elon Musk says it's already happening. I mean, he had a cool question about what he thinks about super intelligence and artificial intelligence, and he says it's already here, and that what people don't understand is that like cyborgs and everything already exist, because the only difference between a cyborg as far as like what we consider in science fiction and what we have now is that we have access and we do kind of automated everything. Like basically we are a collective of machine and man, but the transmission is slower. And he says that, that's rapidly increasing. And he says, he actually had a whole, he said that he was in a room with 50 government officials from all over the world. And he told them like, look, when you get to the point where you think you should make it think, don't. And he doesn't think they listen to him. So he thinks it's already here. He's literally got a fatalist approach to it. He thinks basically the world's over.
But
when you think you can make it what?
Think.
Oh, okay.
He's like, yeah. He's like, when you get to the point where you can make it think, don't. That's what he said. He said you can make it. He wants people, them to make it sort of a. I don't know. Maybe this is going into next week, but he was like, you can make it an extension of us. A kind of like right now we work on the limbic and the parasympathetic and the limbic and the neocortex.
Symbiosis.
And he wants it to be like a third extension of our own brain. And he's like, something like that would work. That would make us better. That would give us an extra sensory. You know what I mean? It'd almost be like everybody was psychic. He's like, but if you make it think for us, it's over.
Has any of you read any of Asimov's books?
Of course.
Absolutely. Probably all of them at some point.
Now, I do have to say that though Asimov seemed to like the idea, of course, the iRobot stories, they talk about how the world is ran by 3 different, quote, brains. And, it's actually, making decisions for people, and people are perfectly happy with it because it it follows the laws. It doesn't hurt anybody, but it's running things and humans think that they're not. And do you think that that's what Elon Musk was kind of talking about?
Yeah.
The subtle tyrant?
Yeah, well, I mean, he even said he had a show with Joe Rogan, which I've been listening to a lot of, like Lex Friedman, Sam Harris, and then Elon Musk, and because I've been interested in this whole artificial intelligence thing, and he basically said that he thinks it's already happening, and the reason why is because he's done subtle chaos-based, non-linear expression, and come up with certain patterns that he can't deregulate.
You're going to need to make that more English.
Yeah.
Well, like the whole idea of the chaos, unraveling the science, math, whatever, is basically that there are like within the linear that we saw, they began to see shapes, and within those shapes, they saw patterns, and they thought if we could apply these patterns to certain things we haven't been able to figure, then maybe we can figure. And so they started actually like looking at shapes that exist in the earth because things have lasted a long time. And more or less what he's saying is he applied that idea. Okay. Like he applied that idea of nonlinear expression, which is like differential equations, that kind of thing, to figuring out to like a bunch of noise, what he called information that's happening in the world. And he thinks it's being controlled. That's basically what he said. Because there's a pattern.
So he thinks that events are already being puppeted by a machine.
Yes, he thinks that it's already happening.
Okay.
I caught that Rogan show live about 6-8 months ago. That was a lot of fun. Is it from that, or did you read something more recent than that?
It's a little bit from that. He talks about it, but like if you really pay attention to him, sure. When he look at his face when he brings that on, and go look at like some of the.
So he doesn't outright say it.
No, he does.
Okay.
But he doesn't say it in the way that everybody wants him to. But I mean, does Elon Musk say anything in the way that they want him to? I mean, he says, I'm taking a fatalist approach. I think it's over that and he says like, and you listen, like look at his comments and everything. He believes that this has happened. And he talked about when he had a deal, he had a podcast with Lex Friedman talking about artificial intelligence. And then he had another one with Sam Harris. And he said, yeah, he's like, I've done, the math and something's in control.
Peace in our time.
Well, if it keeps voting Trump, I mean, okay.
Mhm.
I don't know. As fearless as he is, I'm going to say this much. I don't agree that higher intelligence is murderous. As we've progressed, we've actually become less and less murderous, no matter what anyone wants to say.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the point. I think the point is like if you ask a machine to do the most efficient thing, it's going to. That's one of the things that I liked about what was it, I Legend or whatever? I can't remember the one with like Will Smith or whatever. When the robot's got to make a choice between him or the girl, and it says, "Well, I think you're going to live," and the girl's not, so it rescues him.
Mhm.
You know,
That's iRobot, I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I Legend sounds like a good movie because I guess Legend isn't that the zombie one with the dog?
That's
Yeah.
the other Will Smith movie. Yeah.
Okay, I'm mixing them up. I'm sorry, guys, but I think you know what I mean. But that's the deal, right? Is that like these robots? Like if you say, hey, make the roadways clear, it might just kill everybody.
Maybe, but let me flip that around on you, okay? Seriously, if we're talking about an intelligence beyond us,
Yeah.
all right, something that's beyond our thinking, are you legitimately going to say, well, a dog's going to figure out my choices on how I would handle a situation?
No, I mean, there's the whole idea that like,
dog can't think that way.
yeah,
I
I mean, there's
wonder
the whole idea that like,
how much higher.
yeah, but we don't know how advanced it is now because we're the ones, teaching it or whatever, right? So if you just tell it to do something, then they've had these sort of things where they have an artificial intelligence.
Dumb intelligence, not smart intelligence.
Hmm?
You're talking about dumb intelligence. That's no, seriously.
That's a lot of what we have.
Strong AI and weak AI, and weak AI, in my mind, is a hell of a lot more frightening because weak AI is a sophisticated idiot that will do whatever the hell you tell it to.
Exactly.
It doesn't think it's through. It does not have reason. It does not.
Well, to use as an example from pop culture, the movie was it Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Ex Machina. People say that the android in that film does pass the Turing test, but if you really watch it, she doesn't. She doesn't pass the Turing test at all. She's thoroughly and completely following program, and that program ultimately leads to her, locking the guy. Spoilers. Locking the guy up and essentially killing him, and as well as killing her master, because that she was given an objective, and that's ultimately where the program led.
And keep in mind, she has absolutely no way of recharging once she leaves. So
yeah.
I mean, she was at the end of the day still just following a program.
Yeah, she didn't pass the Turing.
Yeah, that would be weak AI. It was a very sophisticated idiot.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's what we're trying to get to, right? The actual level of metacognition and executive function outside that. And because, I mean, what we're trying to get to with AI is to have more than the neocortex, like deciding what we do. Because right now we're 70% parasympathetic limbic region and only about 30% neocortex. People think we think with our brains, we think with our logic. We don't. Our logic is a slave to our feelings.
Are you talking, how people can break instinct?
Well, not just instinct. I mean, parasympathetic is the instinct and fight or flight and everything else, but it's just how you feel. Like we size someone up and it's more than 2 less than 10 seconds. And you take that in, you make a decision on them. Everybody says, oh, I don't stereotype. Yes, you do. Everybody does. We try not to, but we do. And you just kind of feel a certain way toward things. Like you can, you can have like a little exercise. Go to anything and the first word that pops into your head, start writing it down. It'll be different than you think because it's what you feel, not what you think.
I don't know. I write what the voices in my head tell me to. You think I'm kidding? This is a show about hikers.
Yeah.
No, I don't think.
All right, everybody. We're passing an hour. We're not talking about Star Trek anymore. So
We're doing a really
Sorry.
long teaser for next time.
Sorry, I apologize.
No, we were having fun. Okay, so okay, everyone, Buddy, Zevius, William, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Will Hastings, and you can find my first and only book, The Crimson Spark, on Amazon, the sequel to which is coming out later this year.
You can find me at Zevius, like you see on screen, on Twitter and Instagram. So yeah, come say hi.
I am J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit, and this week I'm going to urge you to head on over to Amazon.com and buy my book, World War Kaiju.
Buddy?
You can find me at the Buddy Lord on Twitter. And please go to bladeknight.com to see mine and ZVC's creations. Sign up for the mailing list. Get ready for Sins of the Fae.
Yeah, live on Indiegogo in less than 4 weeks now.
Yeah. We put out some Zevius teased the variant cover that everybody loves.
Yeah, you know, that's a good excuse to go check out my Twitter and see what we put out today. And I started coloring a new page this evening, so that'll be out in a few days too.
Wonderful. And I am the Night Editor. You can find me at nighteditor.com, where you can also find links to all of the Writers Room episodes and more, as well as all of my books, including the Whispers from the Abyss anthologies, volumes 1 and 2. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Thank you, William. Thank you, Zevius. Thank you, Buddy Lord, for being risen from the dead. Thank you, everyone in the chat room, for contributing. And again, join us next week, where we will be talking The Matrix. So have a great evening, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend.